Yeah.
One guy is always flying the airplane. That's key. No matter what's going on in your world, when you're in that airplane, someone is, whether it's the pilot or the captain or the first officer, somebody has absolute authority on the controls. They're making sure, and that's why you pass it off to the first officer, who should be very skilled at that, so the captain can think. Because there's a lot going on sometimes, and I got to take a deep breath and have my proverbial cup of coffee and think through what my plan of action is going to be. That's IBC.
The other thing that Nelson often said was that being an airplane driver, as he liked to say, was essentially hours and hours of sheer boredom, punctuated by a few moments of stark terror. Is that true in your experience, John?
Well, I don't know. There's the old adage. There are old pilots and bold pilots, but no old bold pilots, right? You learn to be a little circumspect. But there is one concept in aviation that carries over into this world and really every other world, and that's one we learned early on. It started out as CRM, cockpit resource management, and they found through human analysis of studies that better than 90% of the accidents were caused by the pilot. It was a human error. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't. I mean, airplanes are, especially today, are extremely safe, and so one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to look hard at the human factors that went into that accident. How does that relate to this? Well, when you get into the cockpit, they say that you might be flying. You're going to be flying all day, maybe the next 3, 5, 7 days with the same guy. If you don't mesh, it's kind of a bummer, but it happens. But when things don't go right, what's so important is not to let that wall of communication, or to build a wall of non-communication. You can't have that. And so there's a saying. It's like, listen to what the person is saying, not who they are. You may not particularly like somebody, but in our business, as a practitioner, I want to listen to what people are telling me. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what they think.
Right.
So that is kind of one of those lessons I carry over from flying, is to listen to what the other person is saying, not who's saying it. I don't know if that resonates with you both, but to me, it helps.
And so, speaking of that, so as an authorized infinite banking practitioner, what is the most common misunderstanding you have to undo when you're introducing a prospective client to the concept?
There's many, but I think that coming from them or coming from me?
Yeah, coming from them, because you're listening carefully to what they're sharing and to what they're thinking. And often, as we've all experienced, there are some common misunderstandings of what the concept is and what it's not. And so what are you running into in the way of misunderstandings when you're speaking to somebody about the concept?
I think oftentimes I see a conflation, if that's even a word, of their expectations of their investments, and taking money and investing it and then putting into this contract. Two separate items, as we all know.
Yeah.
This is not an investment. This is a control of your cash flow. This is about the other. If you're investing in your qualified plan, which I'm not a big fan of, but if you're putting money in there, as Nelson was talking about back when I had this conversation with him years ago, he said, look, they're all focusing on that 5, 10, 15, 20%. They're ignoring the other 80%, which is our cash flow that we're using. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about where's that money going to reside? And if you are the banker and you run that function and you control where that money resides and you make the decisions, game changer. Now, if you got a great investment, wonderful. You got all kinds of capital you can go and snag and deploy it wherever you want on your terms. You have to pay it back today, tomorrow, the next day, this year even. No, you don't. You should. I mean, you don't want to steal the peace, as Nelson would say, but you have the ultimate flexibility with your money. I can't think of a more accessible, more a functional money system than infinite banking. I can't. And that's why I love it so much.
There's a key element, John. I think I want to hit that again to make sure that our listeners really caught hold of what you're saying. Nelson talked a lot about the spending patterns of the average individual and how, okay, everyone's trying, or a lot of the adage of advice has been to save 10% of what you earn or what you make. Very few people are actually doing that, but that's what they say. And they also say pay yourself first, but most people don't know what that means or how to actually accomplish it. Implementing the infinite banking concept is actually a way that you can do that in a very effective manner and do it consistently in a repeatable, measurable pattern by paying premium. But what's really cool is that you're talking about the flow of capital that people are handling, as Jayson likes to say. It's not your money because you're just handling it because it runs through your hands. But if 80% or 90% of that money is running through your hands and you're only retaining or keeping 10% of it, which number do you want to optimize? The 10% that's left over or the 90% that disappeared? If we can fix even a chunk of that 90% that disappeared, contain it into a reservoir that allows you the ultimate of decision making and control and autonomy over all of your future tomorrows, and a cascade effect from your future tomorrows to the future tomorrows of your next generations. Wouldn't you want to do that?
All right. Certainly would. If you, it's just not that hard. It's hard until you get it. And then you're like, the aha moment, the eureka moment that we all talked about back in, when Nelson was teaching. But no, it was hard for me. I had to get past some hurdles myself. I'm a type 1 personality, and I know how to do it. I'm a hard driver. In my previous world, I grew up in the finance world. My dad had a big operation. I worked for my brother. I was a Series 763 guy. I was slinging commodities like there was no tomorrow. I was making money, losing money, making money, losing money. And I take heart pills, for heaven's sakes, because you're so stressed out. This is a zero stress strategy. It truly, and that's what's beautiful about it. You can be 20 years old doing this. You could be 70 years old doing this, and the implementation is the same. And it works. It works. It's stress-free. Go fish. You're not going to lose a cent. It's great.
Yeah, it really is. And what's interesting, and we've all experienced this, talking to clients who have been in the process, who have been implementing for many years, some, approaching 15 years in our case, and the difference in how they view money, how they view financing, how they view their bigger future, it is drastically different than when they first got going in their journey, because they hear folks like us shouting from the rooftops exactly what you just said, that this is a zero stress strategy, but they can't see that right away. It takes time. And Nelson emphasized that so eloquently, that this is not a get rich quick anything. This is meant to happen gradually and incrementally. And in fact, it'll take most people approximately 20 years to gain full control of the banking function as it relates to their needs. But when that time comes, what a peaceful, stress-free way of life it is financially. And so zero stress strategy. I love that.
It just works out. It's worked out well for me. Nelson saved my bacon. You guys probably know my backstory. I went through a lot with the airline business and the ups and the downs and all that. I discovered this. I'm going, holy cow. Boom. This is it.
We have a ton more amazing conversations and great clips just like this if you go right here. Or if you want to watch the rest of this conversation, the full episode, click right here.